I started my sketchbook with a mind map around the word cut and expanded on ideas like disconnect, remove, end, and diamond, ending with words like evolve, editorial, categorize, and replaceable. The word cut brought to mind the imagery of a cut flower, so this is a theme that I've kept throughout my work. Next, I did some more mind mapping on the idea of diamonds and made a corresponding mood board that fitted the theme I imagined. This idea didn't go any further than this, but I liked the link between the word cut and diamond and how it incorporated the ideas of quality, brilliance, and rarity. The next section focuses on mood boards and the different ways of creating them. This is an introduction page I made using magazine imagery and in a black and white theme. I like the contrast in tonality and how the images have a similar styling, creating a specific mood. In our workshops on campus, I made 3 mood boards. This first one is based on the colour red, which I thought was fitting for the word cut because of its connotations with the word stop, but also the colour had connotations of femininity, which is a theme I wanted to explore further. I did this mood board in a more messy collage style, which isn't something I'm used to doing as much, but it fits the kind of chaotic theme here. The second mood board is based on the mood unimpressed. For this, I collected imagery that I thought displayed the mood and presented it in a more neat and minimal style in order to reflect the less expressive mood I was using. I struggled with the narrative mood board because of having limited imagery to use, but after spending more time on this, I've created the narrative of a flower being cut as a gift and included a quote that I thought of when creating it. This double spread is two-sided mood board of some imagery that I thought fitted my theme of cut because of the sharp and angular lines and bold contrasts in these images. It's kind of experimental because one side is lighter and one's darker, portraying slightly different moods. I like both sides equally in different ways because I think the darker aesthetic is more impactful, but the lighter side has a softer aesthetic which could also be used intentionally to convey a message. The next few pages are about graphic layout in magazines. I used a couple of Vogue issues and copied the basic layouts that they use on different pages. My favourites were the ones with a more prominent image and dynamic text. For my own graphic layout task, I made these wireframes and then recreated it on InDesign using some photographs by photographer Lois Cohen and the Loris Ipsum text. These couple of pages illustrate some of the thoughts I had for our brand development task on fragrance branding. I made this design based on the words winter, culture, and creativity, and was inspired by vintage fragrance brand campaigns with an illustrative style and a wintry look. For the next section, I explored femininity in various forms, illustrating the nature, the beauty, and the challenges that come from the idea of femininity. This is a cover page that I made using one of the magazines that I was using. This page explores the connection between flowers and women. Flowers are considered dainty and delicate, the idea that you can damage them if you don't handle them carefully. They have long been associated with women because of the antique notion of the fairer sex. They are often used in branding for fragrance, especially because of the connotations to femininity and light bright colours. Flowers have natural beauty, which seems to be something the beauty and fashion industries focus on with branding in general. This double spread is a visual representation of the beauty industry and how makeup relates to beauty standards among women. Using magazines for imagery around this topic revealed to me just how prevalent beauty is in magazines. I found an article about adult acne and how skincare products could help fight it, but nothing to encourage embracing our imperfections. The magazines I used were Elle and Vogue, so very popular fashion and beauty magazines for women. A similar theme for these pages, I explored the kind of language used when expressing how a woman should look or behave. It looks at the start of the definition of beauty and how it has evolved over the last 10 years especially into something much more problematic. Because of this, social media and the media in general has a huge impact on how we see ourselves and others. Social media platforms and brands have to amplify the voices of minority communities because of the cultural nature of beauty. Also, it seems to be becoming less of a matter of body shape or skin colour, but more about self-awareness and individuality. This double spread is from an Elle 2019 issue, and the photography stood out to me because it represents a different view of femininity. The editorial style title was High Roller and featured 80s tailoring in a more refined way. They described it as soft power dressing at its finest, which to me seems like a contradiction of terms, but I do like how these photos portray a sense of confidence and assertiveness. They're not typically feminine. In contrast, this image from the same magazine has a much more feminine appearance. The main reasons for this are the cut and shape of the dress and also the colour. I've explored on this page how colour has connotations of gender. Pink has been long associated with girls, whilst boys are expected to like more masculine colours like blue or green. Red, brown, black, orange and blue are typically used in masculine branding, whereas for women they consume more peach, pink, coral, rose and varying shades of blush or pastel colours. It's considered more romantic or more beautiful. In the 18th century, however, pink was worn by boys and girls alike. It was even considered a masculine colour, as a variant of red, meaning its connotations with gender are a most recent development. The label attached to the colour was an American invention in order to sell more clothing. The colour pink is an example of how society divides gender and makes assumptions about people for no good reason. Ignoring the inevitable assumptions and embracing the labels is something that therefore holds a lot of power. These pages are about skin tone representation in media. When looking into colorism in high fashion, I found that lighter-skinned women have been favoured as cover models since the very beginning. Only recently have dark-skinned models been featured, and often it's the same woman appearing multiple times. Representation is always improving, but in the beauty industry it's most important that everyone is given a chance to see themselves in some way and that the idea of beauty is broadened significantly. I then went on to look at the way women interact with other women. I liked this quote from Viola Davis about the concept of a group of women and how too often we're told to see each other as the enemy. The idea of solidarity inspired me to make this representation of the multifaceted roles and attributes of women. So the next part of the sketchbook, I look at different ways images can be used or cut to create different visual mood or aesthetic. On this page, I used harsh, jagged, sharp lines, which I found works particularly well with black and white and high contrast images. The overall look is striking and impactful, and I like how it can be very uneven and asymmetrical. It gives a sense of uniqueness and individuality to the image. On these pages, I experimented with overlaying one image onto another using a cutout technique. First, I kept the floral theme but used contrasting shapes, and then I used this stencil technique to replace a part of the skirt with this floral image. I really like how this turned out, and I think the colours together are really impactful and bold. This is a template idea of a magazine layout. I wanted to use softer, rounded, wavy lines this time to see what visual difference it makes. The colours are also much softer, which adds to the overall look and feel of it. I like how the text can be manipulated to almost look like clouds, and how this is mirrored in the wavy lines used on the images. Here I tried cutting an image into strips and then reforming them together in this way to make it look distorted. I think this is a more dynamic way to display images and can add more interest as long as it's appropriate for the style. When looking at distortion, I found that some patterns can also have that effect and can be used on clothing or on the whole image. Finally, I collected some imagery of a similar colour scheme from a magazine and started creating a visual by using shape. I've used deep blue and green colours and shapes that include both pointed and curved edges. I think that in a magazine, using shape like this is an effective way to put across a certain mood or an aesthetic. And these are my references for the imagery.